Welcome everyone, AB here with Watch Collection Productions. Today, we're going to be talking about my personal watch. One of the best watches I've ever owned. I am biased because this is my personal watch, but Lange & Söhne is one of the most underappreciated watch brands alongside Grand Seiko. Well, actually Grand Seiko now is getting more traction, but Lange & Söhne still to this day is still incredibly underappreciated. Now keep in mind this is my personal watch, so I am a bit biased towards it, but I'm going to give you guys all of the facts and specifications of this piece and why I love it so much. So consider this a review or maybe just me talking about why I love this piece, but overall, you guys know this is going to be good. I wanted to mention that this is going to be a different type of review from the usual because this is a piece I actually own. This is a watch that took me months to decide on adding to my permanent collection. Now, with that in mind, the style of this video will be why I decided to buy this specific piece, the competition around the $20,000 to $30,000 price range, and finally, why I think you should consider this watch and Lange as a brand despite the lack of hype. Well, for now at least. Now, allow me to give you a brief history on Lange's revival. Lange & Söhne made a major comeback back in the 90s, but they didn't really shake the industry until 1999 when they introduced what many consider to be the greatest chronograph ever made, the Datograph. Despite looking at the movement of the Datograph and immediately understanding why it takes that title, we would only have to look to Swiss master watchmaker to confirm that statement, Mr. Philippe himself. In fact, in watch circles, they actually nicknamed the rose gold model with the black dial the Datograph. If any model will be the next hype in the industry from Lange, it would have to be the Datograph. Though his reason for not going with the platinum is that he couldn't afford it, I think the watch fits the man perfectly. I digress. So even though Lange & Söhne was making waves in 1999, basically forcing some of the greats like Patek and Vacheron to create their own in-house calibers when it came to chronographs, in 1997 Lange had introduced something called the zero reset function. I'll show you what that is, but people were taking notice because Lange & Söhne adding a zero reset function was a big deal. Because Patek couldn't even offer hacking functions to their famous Calatrava, people were starting to notice that Lange & Söhne was pushing the boundaries and creating some incredible watches at the same price as Patek. Now back to the baby Datograph, the 308025. When looking at this watch and the competition, you have a few options that are popular right now. The FP Journe Chronomètre, you have the Vacheron Traditionnel, and you have, in my case, the AP Quantum Perpetual with a blue pebble dial, which eventually became a dream to even source. It was actually a very close competition between the FP Journe Chronomètre and the Lange & Söhne 308025. Every now and then I would go back to the FP Journe, but I eventually settled on the Lange because I felt it was a better design for me personally, and the watch itself as well as the brand was a grail for me. I know eventually I will get that FP Journe, but for me right now the 308025 was the better watch for my personal use. At first I had a lot of options. I started off really wanting a simple Saxonia in white gold, still a watch I consider to be one of the best dress watches ever made. The Lange & Söhne Moonface crossed my mind, but eventually I realized the baby Dato was literally the perfect watch for me. While the Saxonia was a perfect dress watch, I needed something that wasn't too delicate because I knew despite the price, I wanted to wear it. Even when you look at this watch, you'll see there's a lot of scratches on it because I pretty much treat it like a daily watch. By wear it, I mean enjoy it as if I would enjoy a $500 Seiko. So I decided white or rose gold wasn't going to do it for me. So the platinum was the obvious choice. Heavy enough to feel solid on the wrist, which was actually important for my peace of mind when wearing it casually, more scratch resistant than gold, and finally that gorgeous matte gray dial to give it the perfect dress and casual balance. The big date was a feature I wanted when I added a German watch. Not because I needed a date, I always prefer a no date anyway, but the extremely German design that I associate with Lange and Glasuta is basically that big date function. The big date function was pretty much a must-have for me. I debated getting the Panamanic Lunar if I had gone with the Saxonia. After all, I could have purchased the Saxonia, Panamanic Lunar, and probably had some money left over for a pre-owned 38mm Aquaterra, but as we all know with this hobby, the heart wants what the heart wants, and when collecting watches, nothing is rational anyway. Now allow me to give you a quick run through the specs. This watch has a full platinum case with a 37mm size, 45mm lug-to-lug, and finally a thickness of 9.6mm. Taking a closer look at the dial, we get a matte gray, slightly frosted looking dial with leaf hands that has become iconic to Lange. Funny enough, the hands have lume on it, not very good, but it shows that Lange intended this to be more than a dress watch. Finally, we get a very subtle blue hand in the subdial, that when the light hits it just right, you can't help but stare. It's absolutely stunning. So one of the best functions I've ever experienced on a watch is something called the zero reset function. This was introduced in 1997, and basically, to keep it short and sweet, it's kind of like a chronograph module. Instead of the counter, you get a reset function of the second hand, which means if you pull out the crown, the second hand will snap all the way back to 0. And after experiencing this function, every time I handle any other watch and I pull out the crown and the second hand doesn't reset back, I'm kind of a little disappointed. This is one of the best functions, regardless of my favorite complications, a Gmt function, a chronograph. I feel like this is the most functional complication you could get on a watch, and it's one of my favorites. Not to mention that little blue seconds hand just looks absolutely stunning, but let me show you how it works. So essentially, you can see here the second hand is still running as it should, but then when we pull out the crown, it will reset as if you're resetting a chronograph function, but instead it's resetting the second hand. Set your time afterwards, push the crown back on, and as you can see, the second hand is running as it should. This way you can accurately set your watch, and this is one of the best functions I've ever experienced. Now, one thing that kind of freaked me out is when you look here, when I try to press the date and it's at 2 AM, nothing happens. But then I realized this was something that was done on purpose, because with a mechanical watch, you should never change the date between 9 PM and 2 AM. So after setting the time after 3 AM, you're able to change the date no problem using that button over at the 11 o'clock position. So turn this watch around, you're greeted with a caliber 921 with that beautiful German silver, this really stunning engraving hand finishing, this, I wouldn't call it a micro roller, semi-micro roller I suppose, and just a phenomenal work of art. Every time I twist this watch around, I just want to wear it upside down. One of the best automatic calibers I've experienced in the metal was the Chopard LUC caliber 96. While it is a remarkable and highly regarded by master watchmakers as one of the best automatic movements ever made, the 921 is just on another level. Now, A. Lange & Söhne is known for using German silver for their main plates, that's why you get that beautiful warm hue. However, German silver is actually not silver at all. It's actually a mixture of copper, zinc, and nickel. Now, the caliber 921 also has a 21 karat rose gold rotor with some platinum on it. Also, it's hand finished with glasuta stripes. You also get blue screws. And finally, what we know and love is that hand engraved balanced cock we get in every Lange movement. And something that's really cool is if you bring your watch to the Lange factory, they can actually tell you who personally engraved your watch, which just adds a little bit of personal touch that I absolutely love from A. Lange & Söhne. Needless to say, I absolutely love this watch, and although I am a little bit biased, I highly recommend it to anyone. Especially A. Lange & Söhne in general as a brand. I feel like they're extremely undervalued in the market, and eventually people will realize how incredible this brand actually is. Now, if you do decide you want a Lange in the future, allow me to share with you guys today's sponsor and where I actually got my personal watch, and that is from Ticking Way. When considering your first grail piece, it's important to find someone you can trust, but also someone who's equally as enthusiastic about the product as you are. Ticking Way carries one of the largest collections of A. Lange & Söhne in the United States. The company also carries some of the rarest pieces from brands such as FP Journe, Greubel Forsey, and many more. Check out Ticking Way when you're considering your next grail piece, or book a call to consult about your next purchase. The expert team over at Ticking Way will gladly assist you through the entire process and help you choose the perfect watch for you. But guys, what do you think about Lange? Are they underappreciated? And what do you think about this watch? Do you like it? What don't you like about it? Let us know in the comment section below, and as always, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.